Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted that number 1 would be The Woman King, number 2 would be Pearl, number 3 would be Barbarian, number 4 would be See How They Run, and number 5 would be Brahmastra Part 1 Shiva. And I unfortunately only got 2 out of 5 of my predictions right, and Brahmastra Part 1 Shiva, just to give a quick update on that movie, it got to like number 11. It was so close to sticking around into the top 10, but nope, it was just not meant to be, you know. It made a big old splash here last weekend, made me think, hey, maybe some people will be interested. This movie that's doing well, maybe more people will see it. Apparently not. You know, it dropped down so much. It only made like $1 million this weekend. Not even really worth dwelling on too much. So let's just get into what actually happened this weekend. I was correct in saying that number 1 was going to be Woman King this weekend. It made $19 million this weekend. And although there is no worldwide report to add on to that number right now, that is still a pretty strong opening, all things considering, especially when you factor in the fact that this movie has a budget of $50 million. You know, that's relatively pretty small compared to how big some of these other productions have gotten, you know. So I think, you know, how domestically it'll probably carry over. It'll probably have pretty strong legs in the next couple weeks. And then once you add in a worldwide total and bump it up, I think you will be able to get to a doubling point, and this movie will be able to be considered a success and not a big old loss for Sony. So that is very good. It's the highest opening weekend for Gina Prince Bythewood, which is, you know, pretty damn good. You know, the other movies are kind of more either independent movies or just movies that not many people had heard of and not gone out to see. So, you know, this movie having the kind of buzz it's been having, obviously it's probably going to be the most financially successful, but it's still pretty good for her. And I'm very glad this has happened. And I can't wait to see, you know, how it carries over, what this means for Gina Prince's next movies. If this opens up a bigger door for her, that'd be pretty swell. And this is definitely a movie worth seeing, by the way, if you have not yet, because 19 million is good and, you know, tops the box office, but, you know, it could be higher, you know what I mean? Especially for, like, you know, the month of September, the September drought, you know, this could be a higher number, and it probably should be too, you know what I mean? So, you know, we're gonna get into some more depressing numbers, so obviously, you know, this is pretty damn good, all things considered also, but, you know, go check out movies, especially this one, because this was pretty good. But moving on to number 2, Barbarian. I proposed a question last weekend saying, like, will the word of mouth help Barbarian out as far as its next weekend, because it opened with $10 million, and that can drop pretty heavily if there's no word of mouth, if nobody's talking about it or suggesting it. And I was very happy to see that it dropped from a $10 million opening weekend to $6 million in its second weekend, only dropping by $4 million, not even like 50%, is pretty damn good. Now its domestic total is at $20 million, and even though worldwide, you know, the total is only like a smidgen higher than the domestic one, 22 million, that is just enough to get by its 10.5 production budget once you double that. So it has already doubled that budget and it's 1 million over it. So that's pretty damn exciting. You know, the people have been talking about this movie. People talked about it before it came out, but now that it's out and people are seeing it, more people are seeing it, and more people are talking about it, you know, people are curious. And even though it's not like, you know, breaking box office records or anything like that, you know, the biggest of the big, it's still doing pretty damn good, you know, considering how some movies just come and go so quickly these days. I'm glad that something like Barbarian is, you know, able to stick around, and it's a movie that is worth, you know, checking out and worth sticking around this long. I would love for this movie to make even more money if that's possible. Number 3 was Pearl. So my predictions, the only one of the biggest things other than Brahmastra was these two flip-flopped. I thought Pearl would do a little bit better. It actually made an opening that was 1 million below X's $4 million opening. Doesn't really matter because this movie's budget is only 1 million, so it has already kind of doubled it, making $3.12 million. So it's already doubled that $1 million, but already tripled it technically, which is pretty damn good. And I think, you know, similar to Barbarian, I wonder if this movie will, you know, favor from word of mouth, people talking about it, people talking about X more, and just seeing how much this movie gains after that in the next couple weeks. I would hate it if this dropped, you know what I mean, while Barbarian does so well. I'm hoping that Barbarian is like the key of like, hey, you know, more horror movies that are crazy and weird can get attention and people can like it, and it can make money, especially when it's done pretty cheap, you know. So I'm hoping for the best for Pearl as well. You know, I don't see this 1 million opening below X's as anything too bad. You know what I mean? I am a little concerned about number 4, which is See How They Run. It made $3.10 million this weekend worldwide. The total is $7 million. I cannot find a production budget for this thing, but you got a lot of stars here. Saoirse Ronan, Sam Rockwell, Adrian Brody, David Oyelowo, so many other people in this as well. And, you know, a movie that is not cheap. You know, they're trying to capture an era. There's a specific kind of camera work, editing style, and direction, all that stuff that they're trying to achieve here. And, you know, it's not a cheap movie, but it's open with, you know, these numbers that only really are profitable if it's like a low-budget horror movie, and that's a little disappointing because the movie's kind of fun, you know? And I was really hoping, and I was very happy that I didn't get my prediction wrong, selfishly. I was very happy I didn't get my prediction wrong, but at the same time, I was like, man, after Knives Out and people are like, yeah, murder mysteries need to make a comeback, come on, we need more, and then here is one, and, you know, it doesn't get as much attention. And obviously, you know, Knives Out benefited from so many other, like, A-list kind of names, and, you know, Rian Johnson was coming off of Last Jedi, and a lot of, and See How They Run has decent reviews. Knives Out had great reviews, so, you know, benefits to Knives Out in a lot of different ways, but, you know, it's still just kind of a bummer, you know. It is kind of, it makes me worried about more murder mysteries in the future, unless, you know, they go to streaming or something like that, if that doesn't completely collapse that release model. You know, it's just, I don't know, kind of a bummer, you know. It's like I said, it was a fun movie, it wasn't perfect, but, you know, as far as, like, you know, murder mystery fan, wants to see more, wants to see other people challenge the genre, you know, this was a lot of fun, and I hope more people go out to see it. I don't think this will have the same kind of word of mouth kind of attention that Barbarian got, though. Number 5, we have Bullet Train making $2.5 million, adding to a domestic total of $96 million. As far as the other Brad Pitt movies, like I've been talking about, it is $4 million away from outgrossing Seven's entire domestic run. We'll see in the next week or 2, maybe 3, if it does do that. Worldwide, it is sitting at $222 million, which is $1 million away from outgrossing Brad Pitt's Interview with the Vampire, so that's probably definitely going to be happening next weekend. So that's, you know, fantastic. I have nothing else really to add on this. This is another movie that is, you know, tying into the whole theme of this episode, I guess, that has really benefited from word of mouth over the last couple weekends that it has been out, because it, you know, it came out, had a pretty solid debut, but people coming out saying it's fun, it was, you know, really entertaining. You know, that number has, you know, that has just added to the amount of people that wanted to go see this, and now, look at it, $200 million worldwide over that. That's really fucking great, and, you know, going up and up and up in the Brad Pitt filmography ranks, which is incredible. But once again, no movie can top Gun Maverick, still sitting at number 6, making $2.18 million, adding to a domestic total of $709 million. It is slowly inching towards Avatar's number 4 spot for all-time domestic runs. It's $51 million away from doing so. With the Avatar re-release next weekend, that number is probably gonna go up a little bit, so don't count on this outgrossing Avatar anytime soon. But worldwide, it is sitting at $1,463 million, which is $51 million away from Furious 7's number 10 for all-time worldwide grosses. And although Furious 7 is not getting a re-release like Avatar is next weekend, still, like, you know, it's, this movie has now slowed down, and it has reached a point in these charts where, you know, the gaps in between are a little too major. But, you know, that does not take away from this movie's success at all. This is still fucking incredible. Number 7, though, oh my god, DC League of Super Pets, inching away, still trying to get there, you know, making $2.17 million, adding to a domestic total of $87 million, $18 million away from outgrossing Lego Movie 2, you know, still plugging away at that, and worldwide it is sitting at $177 million. Now, not only is this $6 million away from the Warner Animation Storks movie, that worldwide run, but it is also officially $3 million away from doubling its $90 million budget, which, you know, I've been saying for a while, like, man, it hasn't even been able to, you know, get across its initial production budget domestically. It hasn't even gotten to this point already, and it's a Dwayne Johnson, Kevin Hart, you know, celebrity vehicle. And it's like, okay, we're almost at that doubling point of $180 million, but the thing is, though, I'm willing to bet that with a movie like this, they need a whole lot more. You know what I mean? They need a whole lot more to be considered a success. Like, maybe maybe triple this budget, or maybe, you know, depending on how much they really shoved into the marketing and getting all these stars, maybe like 300 million or 400 million until they like break even. It really is hard to tell these days with how much, you know, celebrities get paid and how much their salaries, you know, grow out of control, or how much goes into marketing, and how much costs they don't tell you about, you know. So yeah, unless it is like a low budget kind of movie or like a low budget horror movie, it's really hard to tell when some of these bigger ones are actually profitable or not. You know, I read a thing like a couple days ago that The Northman, which was a big old flop if you looked at just its run in theaters, apparently was able to actually make back its money through a combination of that theatrical run and then premium VOD sales and then DVD sales, stuff like that. So I was like, that's incredibly surprising, because, you know, the only thing anyone had been talking about was how it's this ambitious, you know, brilliant art movie that flopped hilariously at the box office, but, you know, that did pretty well. So some of this stuff is really hard to actually kind of nail down and gauge. So what does this mean for the series? I don't know. Let's just move the fuck on to number 8, which is The Invitation, making $1.7 million, adding to a domestic total of $21 million. Worldwide, it is sitting at $30 million, so it has tripled its $10 million budget. Way to go, gang. Please don't make more. I already made this plea in like the last video, or maybe the video before, but just please don't make another one, because they end in a way that was like sequel bait, and hopefully a, you know, $30 million to $10 million production budget isn't enough to, you know, warrant that. But just please don't do it. It would be so horrible. Moving on to number 9, which is the Minions Rise of Gru, making $1.3 million, adding to a domestic total of $364 million. It is now $4 million away from getting to Despicable Me 2 and The Secret Life of Pets' overall domestic runs to being the highest grossing Illumination film of all time. And you know what? Either it's next week or it's the week after that. I think it's definitely gonna get that 4 million at this point, you know what I mean? And it's a bummer that it's probably not gonna be here in the top 10 next weekend, because, you know, we've got some movies coming out that will probably push this out. It's a bummer I can't report on that, but, you know, that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, you know? Worldwide, it's sitting at 913 million. That's 62 million away from Despicable Me 2. So, right, domestically is the one that's it's gonna get the highest grossing Illumination film of all time. Worldwide, it's a little off from some of the other ones, but still, what a behemoth this Minions Despicable Me franchise is. Jesus Christ. And finally, closing out the video, number 10, it's not Brahmastra, it's Moonage Daydream, the David Bowie documentary, making $1.2 million. Worldwide, it's bumped up to like $2 million. I don't know what the budget was to make this movie, but, you know, there it is sitting in the top 10. Congrats. I have nothing else to add other than, you know, I'm sure some people who are a big fan of this movie, maybe, you know, big bummer that it couldn't make more, but, you know, that's just kind of the thing with documentaries. It's kind of a harder sell, especially for movie theaters. You can promote, like, it's like a concert thing, you know, we're doing a documentary about these artists, these singers, and it's like a concert thing, and it's like, even that isn't even enough to, like, there was a documentary about, like, these this couple, I think a couple who like did volcanic research, and the thing was like, man, go see this in theaters where they're like right by the volcano, it's all real. And I don't think that really made a big dent either. So it's like, yeah, just kind of the average documentary run right here. Let's move on to next week's predictions. Number 1, how could you not go with Don't Worry Darling, the most scandalous movie of the year? This is probably definitely going to get number 1 just off of people's curiosity alone. Then number 2, I think The Woman King will hold over pretty well. And then number 3, maybe this is a bold prediction, I'm not sure, but I think the Avatar re-release will actually have a pretty damn good chance of getting up here, you know? That they've updated, you know, some of the look of the movie, like it's been remastered to 4K. The Avatar sequel is coming out later, and, you know, anytime this movie re-releases, people do go out to see it. So I think, you know, especially this time with how much they've got going for it, they actually will have a shot of getting into this top 5. You know, it wouldn't just be like, oh, it got re-released, but it got to number 9 or 8. Now, I think they actually will get into number 3 spot. Number 4, I think, will be Barbarian, and number 5, Pearl. But what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below, and if you got your predictions right for this week, you're going to get a shout out right now. Unless you didn't get it right, then I'm sorry. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.